Good day and welcome. Welcome to NACTV's Coffee Chat. My name is Lyle Watson, and we are very pleased to have as our guest today Eileen Clarke, who needs no introduction, but she is our local MLA for the constituency of Agassiz, and also the newly appointed Municipal Relations Minister. And welcome to our Coffee Chat, Eileen, and thank you for taking the time to join us this morning.
Good morning, Lyle. It's always a pleasure to come and chat with you and the viewers across Manitoba.
Well, we always look forward to this opportunity to get a bit of an update what's happening around Agassiz and the province of Manitoba. And of course, we, on behalf of our constituents and the citizens of Nipahwa area and the Agassiz constituency, congratulations on your new appointment as the Minister of Municipal Relations, and how are you feeling about that?
Well, I think most people know that municipal affairs in my life has been strong. Over the past 14 years, I was very humbled and very appreciative when the Premier asked me if I would consider taking a cabinet position again after 7 months out of cabinet. It was a good time for me to reflect over those 7 months about my past work in government as a cabinet minister with Indigenous and Northern Relations. But to ask for me to return seemed to be the right time to go back. I was very enthusiastic. I was rested. I was feeling confident in taking that role, of course. And since I've been there, it's been a busy time, but I'm feeling really good about it.
Well, it seemed like a natural choice, and I like the fact that it's called municipal relations, because the relationship between municipalities has quite an impact on what happens across the province. With your experience, Eileen, and maybe you can just touch on that, through the Association of Municipalities back when you were Mayor of Gladstone, it almost seems like you were an excellent choice to fill that position.
Well, it's been an interesting journey because I really didn't want to run for Gladstone politics in the day. My husband had been there and I didn't think it was a great opportunity for me, but I weakened and I accepted, and I was with Mayor of Gladstone for 8 years. That was a really great experience. I learned a lot. It was enjoyable, but of course the amalgamations brought about a lot of change, and that ended my municipal political career quite quickly. To go then to the provincial side, I'd been asked many times to do that, and I had refused constantly. Even by the former Premier, I had told him no, I wasn't interested. I wanted to work with the people. And eventually it became very clear that perhaps this move to provincial government was where I was meant to be. And I finally did not fight it anymore. I advanced to that and was very successful in the nomination. It's been a whirlwind of activities throughout the past 14 years. But to be appointed as a cabinet minister immediately upon after the election of the provincial government.
Yep.
And the Premier appointed me to Indigenous and Municipal Relations. And that was a bit of a surprise also, because yes, Municipal I had a lot of experience. Indigenous I had absolutely none. That lasted about 18 months, and then the Premier indicated to me he'd like me just to take on Indigenous and Northern Relations, and he would appoint a different municipal minister. And contrary to what most people would think, I was actually relieved, because I had a lot of friends in the municipal world, and as a minister I knew there'd be decisions made that would perhaps sever those friendships, and I deemed those friendships a very important part of my life. And I have to say, the 6 years, nearly 6 years that I spent with the Indigenous leadership and Indigenous people in meetings or across the province in their communities was probably one of my best life experiences. I have been richly blessed by the relationships I had and what I have learned about their culture, about their ceremonies, and about their life, past and present. And all of those relationships have gotten me to where I am now. My work now in municipal relations and this government will look a lot different. I come into this with a great deal of confidence and enthusiasm, so I really look forward to the months ahead.
As when you were Mayor of Gladstone, you served as a chairperson or the president of the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, did you not?
I was actually the director for the Midwestern area
Okay, director, yeah.
for the first 3 years.
Yep.
And for the last 4 years, I was vice president. I worked with President Doug Dabrowski and the other executive and directors across the province. And that too was a great experience. They taught me a lot. The Indigenous people of Manitoba have taught me a lot, and I feel very richly blessed and going into this with an abundance of knowledge and abundance of relationships.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably a kind of a tough question, and you mentioned that you learned a lot of things from the Indigenous culture and their customs and their way of life, and I know there's a lot of interesting aspects of that culture. Is there any one or two things that stand out in your mind that you learned that you could share with our viewers?
There's probably many. They brought about within me by learning from them patience. They taught me a great deal about respect. They taught me about the pride in their culture, and that many of us don't look back on our culture or our upbringing for many reasons. With the pride, they taught me to really open my eyes, my ears, my heart, and it's changed my life. I will never be the same as I was before, and I'm actually proud of that, because I have a calm within me now. Even when things aren't going right, I have a different calm within me because I appreciate my greater world so much more.
Wow, that's pretty interesting, isn't it?
It's a good feeling, and I would not have had that feeling if I hadn't had the experience I did with the Indigenous people of Manitoba.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, the other item was big news in the Nipahwa area, of course, is the Nipahwa Hospital, the announcement of the new hospital. There's a lot of excitement about that, and I'm sure you're excited about it too.
I really am. I know the people. I'm happy for the people. When I was working selling memberships for the nomination of this position, that was the key issue in the Nipahwa area, and understandably so, because a lot of people had been working really hard at that point. The physicians and the public had been working really hard, knowing how badly they needed a new hospital. However, in those first years of government, the finances were in really poor shape. And when I became aware through our cabinet discussions that Nipahwa Hospital was in the queue, and I couldn't talk about it, and it was really difficult to not express that. But there was a long period of time. We had many meetings when Manitoba in the city was going through health transformations, and we had regular updates from Shared Health, what is Shared Health now. And I remember the first time one of the presenters referred to, they used Nipahwa as a hub, as an example, and I caught that, and I spoke to him afterwards, and I said, and I spoke up at that meeting as well, and I spoke very strongly on behalf of this area for that hospital. But I knew by those words that there was discussion going on behind the scenes. So I've pushed really hard at every opportunity to move that forward, and it has become reality now. And when we did the announcement, I felt a lot of pride to be a part of that. I was not the initial initiator of it, and there's so many people that have worked so hard. But as the MLA for the area, I knew how much it would be appreciated. And I realize that even more now when I see, what we're going through during COVID as a province. Mm-hmm. And I see that, that our province is working towards better health at home. Nipahwa is a hub. this is a very large region. This is a very large population in Nipahwa. And now having also a hospital announced in Portage la Prairie, that bodes very well for that area as well. And that serves a lot of the people that are within my constituency as well. So I feel like I have a double opportunity here to have seen this come to fruition. And I am very excited about it because the services that can be offered and the additional jobs that it will employ as well, it's just a win-win. And I'm aware of other opportunities, not necessarily in healthcare, but other opportunities in the Nipahwa area that will serve the region in the future. And that's really exciting. And we need these good news stories right now during, you know, the frustrations of COVID that everybody's experiencing. There is good things coming. There is good opportunities coming. And within our government now too, I've been appointed to the Treasury Board, and I've been really enjoying the meetings because we are right in the middle of the next budget. And
I'm sure that's interesting.
It's interesting, but again, I was on Treasury Board at the beginning of my term in 2016 and then off. And to come back now and understand the whole process so much more, it's really exciting. I'm very excited about the future for Manitoba, and Nipahwa Hospital is only one of the great news stories, but it's a good one for this area.
Well, I think it's a good choice to put a new hospital here because of our growing population, but also the proximity to Brandon and Portage. I think it'll help to serve the larger area in general, having more care facilities here. And
it definitely will, and I'm glad that this is a government that is focusing on extended healthcare in the rural areas, because we all know we enjoy living where we live. We don't want to have to move, but in order to not have to move as seniors, you and I both know, there has to be housing, there has to be healthcare, and there has to be services. And we are a growing population, us baby boomers, and I for one want to stay in my rural community. So
and I don't want to be driving to Winnipeg for a doctor's appointment all the time. You know, for to see a specialist.
Healthcare is changing. There's no doubt about it. But I think our population will see in the coming months, and that there's good changes coming.
Good changes. Good. Well, talking about healthcare, I think we would like to touch a bit on COVID and where we're at in terms of restrictions, and where you, as a member of the provincial government, what are your thoughts on the COVID and what's down the road for us?
Well, I'll start by saying the past 2 years have probably been the hardest 2 years of my life politically because of politics and COVID. This is a pandemic that nobody could have ever anticipated. We certainly haven't anticipated that. And there was a time early on, I was kind of a bit in awe, thinking that I got to be a part of or live a pandemic that was talked about last in 1918, the Spanish flu. My mother remembered that. She lost a brother to the Spanish flu. And now, 100 years later, I got to experience this. I mean, we read these things in biblical times, but here we were in the flesh, and we were going to experience this. It hasn't been a good experience. It hasn't been a good experience for anybody. It's been really hard on a lot of people. We've lost a lot of people, and generally, people are very divided on their views of restrictions and mandates and the vaccines, and the people are very, very vocal about how they feel about it. And I think that's our generation as well. We are a more vocal generation. And with the media and social media, it's instilled a lot of fear in a lot of people. It's created a tremendous amount of stress. It's increased drug addiction and other addictions in very, very serious ways. I got to experience our healthcare system in November when I was hospitalized in an emergency situation. And I got to see behind the scenes too, and that really opened my eyes, because I'd been in contact with my mom just days before that when she was tested positive for COVID in the Third Crossing Manor in Gladstone. That situation was out of control in hours and short days. 70 people infected just so quickly. And because I'd been in contact with her, the hospital staff had to treat me differently. They had to do so much more in regards to the PPE that they had to wear to come into my cubicle. And I watched and I said, I almost felt guilty that I required that extra steps because I'd only been in contact with my mom.
Yep. Yep.
And I got to see firsthand, I got to talk to the healthcare providers. I asked them questions about, their work and their life. And most people don't get to see that. They don't get to experience it. And that's how it is politically too. Behind the scenes, I've got colleagues that have worked endless hours, no days off, for months and months and months, trying to make good decisions, listening to all the stakeholders, listening to the doctors, especially the healthcare providers, and the business owners, and everybody that's affected.
Yep.
We're all affected in some way.
Yep.
Some of us less negatively because we can live in our homes. Our jobs don't require that we are out and necessarily have to be where this situation is really serious. So people are affected very differently, and consequently our visions and our views are very differently. But it's serious, and decisions have to be made. We elect people to make decisions. We elect people to government. We elect people to church boards. We elect people to school boards. We elect people in our groups and organizations. Everywhere we elect people to make decisions on our behalf. And yet I'm seeing the past 2 years that there is no decision that is made that is accepted.
No.
And it's difficult.
Scary.
It's really, really difficult. And I'm not in the worst place within our government to face this and deal with it. But for our premiers and those in the higher positions, our doctors like Dr. Rusin and other people that are in the media day after day after day, I just don't even imagine how they weather this storm because the stress level is so great. The physical aspects of it are so great, and nobody's happy.
No.
Nobody is happy. We have 50% supportive, we have 50% against. There's no win. There's no good answers. And right now we're in a position within Manitoba that the future, there is now a glimmer of hope. We are nearing or have maybe plateaued the peak of Omicron, and we are hopeful that things are going to improve. We were hopeful in the fourth wave. We were hopeful in the third wave.
That's right. Yeah.
And I mean, who of us can predict what's next week or next month in our lives? We can't predict.
And it probably won't be the last virus we face.
It won't be, but now we have to make decisions based on what the criteria that we've got.
Today.
And those decisions don't come easy. And we know as a government we'll be criticized regardless of what we do, because it is going to affect, once again, everybody in a different way. But I hope and I pray that we can move forward from this time into a better life. It will. I don't know what normal looks like anymore. I don't think anybody does, and I don't think our province or our world will ever be the same. There is going to be definite changes, and I can't even predict what those changes are going to look like.
Yeah. You talk about no-win situations. In the case of the new Premier, Heather Stephanson, and her popularity has, been up and down based on some of the decisions that were made because of COVID. It's not totally fair, and how does she overcome that, or is that a tough question? I know, but
she is in a difficult position to have a change of leadership midstream is not easy, and I mean there's been lots of conflict even within the election for her position itself, and there again it's a differences of opinion, and a lot of it was based on COVID. So it was a difficult win. She's in a difficult position. I know Heather Stephanson as a person. I know that I have really enjoyed working with her because she is a person I could sit down, I could talk to, And it was always just a really down-to-earth conversation, and with no arrogance, no alternate agenda. And I feel she's a person I can absolutely trust going forward. And if she weren't, I would have never accepted a cabinet position, because I knew the difference. After July 2021, I knew what my abilities were, and I knew what my values were. And I would not have gone back into cabinet with the thinking that perhaps, well, I'll see how it goes, because if it doesn't, I can remove myself again. That's not an option for me.
Yeah.
I had to be 100% certain that I could work with her, that her goals and my goals were somewhat aligned, and that she would be supportive of me in my role wherever she chose to put me, and allow me to do my job. And she has done all of that without exception. And I am supportive of her, because I know first and foremost, she's a good person. And I also know that she has the outcomes of Manitobans in her best thoughts, and she bases her decisions on that. The decisions she has to make are not easy. She's not aggressive. A lot of people in the media think sometimes that she is not stating strongly enough. She's not an aggressive person, and I, for one, do not believe you have to be aggressive to get your point across. I am like her. I worked behind the scenes, and I did my job. She did the same. I know that because I saw it. I worked with her. So tough roads ahead, no doubt about it. We are facing an election in 2023. That is relatively, in political terms, a very short period of time.
It is, yes.
But I know I will be working very hard within my role as municipal minister, but also within my role as government, to prove to Manitobans that this is a government that can make good decisions.
You take the responsibility of forming good relationships with your colleagues and your constituency and everybody in general. That's one of your highlights, I think, and so hopefully that all works out, and maybe Premier Stephanson can work with you and the other colleagues and develop that respect and good relations.
Yeah, I have a lot of good colleagues. I have, our colleagues in cabinet, and those who are not appointed to cabinet, are all busy working. There's a lot going on, and as I indicated a bit earlier, there's a lot to be optimistic about post-COVID. We're very fortunate. Manitoba went into COVID with a balanced budget. Not many provinces across Canada could say that. Will we come out of COVID without a deficit? No. That's not even reality, because the costs have been high to keep things economically functioning and to put extra money into education, healthcare, wherever needed. So we'll have a deficit, but I'm very optimistic that the fact that, and we can thank Brian Pallister for that, for getting us to a balanced budget just before COVID hit, and going forward, we have to build on that, and we will. We are all determined, and I think the forecast going ahead post-COVID is very positive.
You said you mentioned that you had been appointed to the Treasury Board.
Yes.
So do you get to sit in on the budget debates and on that board?
Yeah, I do, and it's really exciting, because I was on Treasury Board back in 2016, as I indicated. And now I go into there with a totally different vision, because I totally understand all the departments. I understand the work that's going on. I understand the work that needs to be done. And now we're right in the middle of finalizing. I think my last meeting is this afternoon on the budget estimates. And it's been really exciting. These meetings are 3 to 4 hours long, and that's a long sit. But the time goes very quickly, because I see the work that's been done, and I see the work that's being projected. And I'm enthusiastic. I'm really excited about it.
When's the new budget in the next setting?
It'll probably be, we go back into session on March 1st.
March 1st.
So I'm assuming it'll be before the end of March. It usually comes early in the session.
Yeah. in terms of budget and what we've been through with COVID and the state of our healthcare system, probably going to have to be some investments in our healthcare system to protect us against another virus or another wave. It must be a real challenge to balance all that out in your budget debates.
It's you know, and maybe COVID has pushed us in a better direction as far as healthcare too, because it's exposed a lot of gaps. And I know a lot of people say, you know, a lot has been wrong with our healthcare system. I've heard like for the last 20 years, and I'm not disputing that, but maybe this is the catalyst that shows not just Manitoba, but all premiers across Canada are pushing for better healthcare, better funding for our provinces, and we have to find a way to do that. But I know too, it may not be public yet, but there's always lots of discussion going on improvements and what needs to be done, and I'm seeing that in budget deliberations. That, you know, we are aware. We can't talk about these things right now every day. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort to prepare a budget and to evaluate what went on in the past, what's happening now, and what do we need as a province in the future. Because we are still a growing province and we should be very proud of that. Mm-hmm. Economically, our province has done really well in the past years, and we have expectations, because there's discussions going on, that that's going to continue. Manitoba is not the forgotten province anymore, and I think we need to put aside all our differences and start focusing on building that capacity in our province, and we all need to be a part of that. We need to speak positively about our province. We need to believe in our province, and we need to work together. It's going to take everybody to get us back on track, but we can do it because we're already in the process of getting there. So again, I find that very encouraging.
So we will see some improvements and changes in our healthcare system over the next couple of years.
I think it's inevitable. I think you'll see that all across Canada. There's not a province that isn't talking about improvements to their healthcare system. This pandemic, as we've seen it for the past 2 years, is a real eye-opener, because I mean we don't know what's next, you know. But what's more important? That's our biggest expenditure on our budget is healthcare. And we know too, people are living longer. I'm amazed how many 100th birthdays I see celebrated. You know, 95, 100 is not. You know, my own mom was 91 last week, and it's surprising because, you know, my grandparents didn't live. Her parents only lived to their 70s.
That's right.
70s now. Well, 70s looking pretty young. So, you know, our people are living longer, and they want those hip replacements, knee replacements, cataracts, and everything else that goes with it. And even, you know, my emergency process with my heart. You know, wasn't expecting that, but that system was there and it worked beautifully. So I was pretty impressed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned population and seniors, baby boomers getting older, and we are a large part of, I guess we're dating ourselves a bit here, Eileen, but we are a large part of a growing segment of our population. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned before, and I'd like you to touch on it again, is the fact how we were raised, and you know, we want this today, and the government to do this, and this, and our attitude and what we're passing on to the next generation. And I know that you have some real insight in terms of hope, your faith, and your gratitude of what we have. Could you just talk about those things that you share with a lot of people on your Facebook messages with us?
Well, I've had a lot of time to reflect this last 6 months not being in cabinet. I've had more personal time, and I've had a lot of time to think, I guess. But, you know, I'm looking at COVID, for instance, and I think of my parents, I think of my grandparents, and my dad was on council back in his days as well. And I think of my parents' commitment to, I saw a video just by chance this past week, and it was where my mom and dad were celebrating this 50th year of their church. And we started going to church in an old country church. Well, my mom and dad were part of that church from the day it was built. They were part of that same church when the first one was built in Gladstone. They were part of that church when the second one was built in Gladstone. And I watched my mom and dad, they were speaking at that of their experiences in that church in the first 50 years. Well, my mom now has been a member of that church for 73 years, and she's the oldest living member. And I think back to that and their dedication to their church, their dedication to community, how we used to visit with friends and families, and the close-knit community within a church. And I think that's been one of the hardest things during COVID, is the communication that I've got from individuals throughout my constituency and beyond, where they are of a strong Christian faith, and they are people that I know well, and people I have always respected, and the types of communication that I've been getting from them, it's been really difficult.
Yep.
It has totally shattered my faith in people too often. And not because their views are different than mine, I accept that. It's the tone, it's it's not the Christian-like way that we were raised. And even as a business person, I was treated well for the most part in my business, but there were a few customers always that would treat you rather disrespectfully or treat you differently.
Yeah.
And it hurt, but we got past it. And there was always a respect for leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up where there was always respect. If we came home from school, and I never did get in trouble from school, but I had siblings that did, and my parents always stood by the teacher.
Yeah.
They always went to the teacher.
I remember that very
my
clearly.
siblings were meant to apologize, and and even with my own children, I remember my son got in a bit of trouble for laughing during band class, and I went to the teacher, and there had been 4 that were in trouble. None of the other parents went, and I said, asked what was the problem. Well, he had laughed because somebody else had acted up, and I said, was he the instigator? No, but he laughed. And I stood by the teacher. I had a good talk with my son, but that one was kind of iffy. But we had respect. We had respect for elected officials. We had respect for our church leaders, our ministers. We had high respect for doctors and nursing staff and that.
And even bank managers, for example.
Even anybody, staunch business people. And I look back, how I thought of political leaders back in that time, and I look back at the abuse that we take now. And in fact, this week it was suggested that we have security in our own personal homes. That really hit hard.
Yeah.
Because, I've lived in a community where there's trust that your home, for years we never even locked our home. And now they're asking me to put security on my home.
Yeah.
What does it come to? And, when I look at some of the communications I get, and they're filled with hate. And I look at my Facebook page, and I've always warned people that if you portray hate, racism, or bullying, or any of those types of things, I will remove you off my page. I will not tolerate that. This past week, I've had to remove quite a few, and that also is hurtful.
Yeah.
Not all are friends, personally of mine. They're Facebook friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
But out of 2,000 plus, I had to remove people because of comments made that were really serious. That upsets me, that concerns me. I am really hopeful, and I will work really, really hard as a politician to help to turn this around.
Yeah.
We need to get back to respecting each other. We need to get back to some level of trust. And I've read more issues about where you can't trust government and you can't trust. I know the colleagues I work with. There is not distrust there. If I felt that it was that bad, I wouldn't be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have values. I stand by my values. But it's a sad day in our world. It's a sad day in Manitoba, because Manitoba is always seen as, we're that province in between. We're quiet. We're friendly Manitoba, and we're smaller, we're more close-knit, we have a lot of small communities, You know, and I can still go to the rinks and the kids are still having a great time, and that's good, you know, but we need to get back to our community functions. And you mentioned about volunteers. I hope we do get back to that place where we come together and we can work towards good things without there being a dollar value attached, where we have to be paid for what we do. We do it through our hearts, not our, you know, pocketbook, so to speak. So COVID has taken a lot away, but it's still there. We just have to look deeper into our hearts and start using our hearts again instead of our vocal and social media, and learn to respect.
That respect is so important, and I'm thinking of, you mentioned volunteerism and people volunteering, and when we look at the church congregations, we look at the service clubs, well, pretty well all the organizations in rural Manitoba, or in probably even in the city, the numbers are getting smaller. People are joining less, or they're participating less. How do we change that, or how do we get a message across to the next generation that if they don't step up, we're going to be losing a lot of these services that we've become accustomed to?
Well, I think it's the spoken part is, and it's interesting because I read a piece this morning about we can talk all we want, but it's our actions. Our actions ultimately speak louder than our words. And that's what ultimately will be noticed the most. And so all we can do is keep the faith and keep hope alive. And it's funny because I listen to a lot of music, and Jim Reeves is one of my good old gospel favorites, and it's about the four candles. And love is the one that keeps the other candles burning when they all extinguish. And I thought, wow, it's so fitting for today's world, because, you know, trust, peace, all of this is being kind of snuffed out.
Yeah.
But ultimately there has to be love, and we've got to show that. We've got to move forward. And as much as the political decisions, it is my intention, and I made the Premier very aware of this, that I will be hopefully traveling across Manitoba and meeting with people and sending that message of hope, because we've got a municipal election this fall. Are people really going to run for a political position under the circumstances that they're experiencing and seeing?
Yeah.
Where political leaders of all levels are being abused daily. We need governance. Governance is a way of life, and people have to make decisions. And we've got to portray a different way, and I haven't given up hope on that.
And we have to be thankful for that we in this country can live by the democratic way of government.
Oh yes, I've thought about that a lot when I keep seeing the word freedom, and I think about what does freedom mean to me. It means I can come and go wherever I want, whenever I want. You know, it means to me, I make my decision what my career is going to be. I make my decision how I'm going to raise my children. I make my decision that my kids are home to raise. Yeah. And I look back to the days of residential schools, and I know we've talked about this before, but I think of somebody coming and taking my grandsons away at an early age. I've only got 3 grandsons.
That's right.
And if somebody had taken them away, I can't imagine. Right now in this world, 2022, my grandsons are my stability. Yeah. I look at them and it keeps me going, because I want to ensure that they are better citizens and they grow up with good values, and that they have a safe and happy life. So there's a lot of emotions and a lot of things that have run through my mind and continue to, but I try to always go back to hope, and and that's why I write my posts. And that's become really difficult some days. And in fact, last night was one of those nights where I thought, maybe it's time to quit writing those posts, because a lot of people are very critical of what I say or what I think, and they have a right to do that. But then I think of the other 50%, and I noted most recently that soon after I'd been writing my post, there was one individual that commented every day how much she needed to hear those reassurances. She did have mental health issues. She died. She died way too young because of her mental health issues.
Yep.
And I think back to that because by looking around us, we can't tell who's suffering the worst,
No.
Mentally.
Yeah.
And there's a lot right now because the stress levels are so high. And so I got to look deeper within myself to write those posts some days. But you know what? There's a lot of people that just need a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
And that's why I put so many quotes, because they hit me in different ways, so I know they're going to affect different people in different ways. And I kind of watch each day to see which particular quote ends up being kind of the quote of the day. And it's been interesting. It's been fun. That's been a part of my journey.
Well, I encourage you to keep it up, because I know that it does bring a ray of sunshine and some peace of mind to a lot of people, Eileen. So.
Well, I have to be really cautious now too, because I have found after my resignation on July the 9th from Cabinet, the media checks my posts whenever they're posted, and it's good, but I do caution myself on and choosing my words very carefully, because I know it can be in the newspaper the next day. So, but I'm on the other side of that. I'm kind of feel I don't know if honored is the word, but it's kind of interesting that the media is checking out the posts of Eileen Clarke and Gladstone.
Yeah.
So it's but again, that comes with the political position. But they've done so in a very positive way. I've got to say, I find that the media has been really respectful to me, and I don't actually fear the media. So it's been all right.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, as usual, our time goes very quickly.
It does.
And we could probably sit and talk for another half hour or so, but we are a little bit limited to time here, and I just want to sum up our coffee chat today with any thoughts you may have that you would like to share with our viewers as we close our coffee chat for today.
Well, I want to thank you. I always look forward to these chats, because I get calls, Jody in my office or myself, we get calls after these have been put out for people to view, and they come from all across Manitoba, and I think that speaks really highly of NACTV for doing these types of interviews, because it's good to speak and to have different views brought forward, and I appreciate that opportunity very much as an elected official, but also just as a resident of the area. And I thank you for that. And I guess if I have a message today, it's just don't give up hope. We have been through rough time the past 2 years because of COVID. Decisions have been very, very difficult, and I know that it has really impacted lives. Seriously, some very seriously. There's been so many deaths, and which has been really hard for people. But just understand, as a government, we make decisions the best way possible given the facts that we have to work with, and there are different outcomes for different people. We know that, we understand that, but decisions have to be made, and they have to sometimes be made very quickly, and it's everybody, I feel, is doing the best job they can, and I just ask people to be patient and to be respectful of each other, because your words and your actions impact many of their lives. So it's just a caution that I feel. So thank you.
Well, that is good food for thought as we go forward, Eileen, and hopefully we can take the hope and the gratitude and our actions and set a good example. And I hope our viewers have enjoyed our program today and our coffee chat with you, Eileen. I thank them for watching and being part of our coffee chat today. And if you have any questions of Eileen, don't be scared to phone her office. And Jody, her assistant, is very, very efficient, and they work together as a good team. And they would answer any questions, or at least attempt to answer any questions you may have for them. Anyways, thank you, and you take care, and health and happiness to you and your family, and good luck on your new appointment as Minister of Municipal Relations. Well, That concludes our coffee chat today, and on behalf of NAC TV, I'd like to express our appreciation for you tuning in and joining us. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and with the way the weather is today, stay warm. See you next time.